get going, I'm gonna see a friend of mine. He's round and he's fuzzy, I love him because he's just Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh Bear. Looking for fun, chasing some honeybees. Pooh Bear, I know he's out there. Rumbling, tumbling, climbing a honey tree, but never ends for us.
Welcome back to MMGinvest. This video will be a little different. We're going to talk about some big boy stuff for the adults. We're going to talk about China and the trade war between the U.S., right? And most Americans recently just heard about China for the first times in their lives. I'm not even joking. But it's because of memes like this, right? And the NBA. And listen, I don't think the players care about China. It's not. They care about their jobs. All right, they care about their jobs because whoever owns the teams obviously has some invested interest, right? And recently, there's been some protests. Hong Kong people going to the games, dressing up as Winnie the Pooh. And, making a statement, then they could get kicked out. And this is happening in the West, right? In the United States, not in Hong Kong. Now, I mean, what's going on here? So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it down first with the stock market, trade, financially, and economically. Then I'm going to break it down as China isn't just an economic threat. It's national security. All right. And I've been reluctant to talk about this in the past. I'm not afraid of government. I'm afraid of the corporations, right? Because obviously things are getting censored and for a reason. And I'm going to dive deeper into that. So, China's stock market. Let's start with the financials and the markets. China's stock market has worst day in a month after bleak GDP data. So the Chinese economy is rolling over. Pork is up by 300% prices. Inflation's creeping up. Besides the fact that their real estate bubble has pretty much started bursting about 2 to 3 years ago. That's when it started, but it's really starting to have an impact. If you guys haven't looked, China has taken all of the intellectual property rights from the West, essentially, from all the corporations, because the deal is, if you're going to come to China and make money off of our enormous population, I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's like 1.3, 1.6 billion people. That's a huge market. It's an enormous market. And their entire economy, because of its enormous growth in the past decade, their middle class is just exploding, right? So the deal is you have to give us all of your intellectual property rights, all your patents. And then there's also more deals, probably. You have to finance through us. You have to give us, certain percentage taxes and whatnot for the Chinese government. And then the corporations are essentially beholden to China. And if these companies are making so much revenue and profits off of China, then co-opted all of these large corporations from the West. Not just that, I mean, they move people within the ranks of corporations and pay everyone off, behind the scenes that no one knows about. And this doesn't just go with corporations. I mean, corporations also fund media in the West, right? And it really, China has entrenched itself all over the West. And even in Russia, although with Russia, maybe they're more of partners, but through this crony capitalist system, they have sort of entrenched themselves, and they could use extremely large corporations in the West as like fifth columns, meaning they control them, and that's why lately you've seen, sports. Why would why would basketball players care about what's going on in Hong Kong, right? And then the media, right? They won't report on any of this. And when they do, they always have a bias towards, they're more anti West, and then they're more for globalism, right? So I'm going to go a little bit deeper, and you guys are going to understand how bad this rot has become. Also, China's credit impulse. So their loans have been diminishing. This is hilarious. A stunning clip shows billions in gold, cash hidden in Chinese city mayor's secret basement. I mean, over $500 million worth. Look at this. This is unbelievable. Look at that. If I just had one of those bars, I'd be happy. But you guys have to understand, there's hundreds and thousands of billionaires in China. And this is what they're doing. This is how they're getting out of their own system that they profited off of. Because they know the state and the country might be going, shit might hit the fan soon. So there's ways they try to get capital out, and they try to preserve it and try not to have it in their Chinese banking system, right? And one of them is precious metals. Another one was cryptos, but I'm pretty sure they've cut off all avenues for that, because obviously the prices of cryptos have pretty much they're going to collapse. So, but you never know though. Later on, as financial destabilization increases and the control structure falls apart, and it will, you never know. Money might be able to flow back into, cryptos, although it's all traced, so people might not trust it. I don't know. We'll see. So, very difficult for China's economy to grow, 6% or faster. So, in the past decade, China's economies have been growing above 6% year over year. I mean, most of the time it was growing above 10%. But with this new data out that that they've been fudging and lying about their economic data, it might actually be lower than 6%. And if it's lower than 6%, there's no way they could sustain their enormous, ever increasing, complex empire. Because think about it. I mean, 1.6 billion people is a lot, especially since the infrastructure is new and they just rebuilt China in about 2 decades and went from third world to first world that fast. I mean, there's more highways been built by China than the US and Europe combined. More buildings have been built. Everything is just exploded. It also explodes in complexity. It also explodes in fraud and derivatives. So the Chinese central bank has also been printing money like crazy lately. China central bank says we'll continue to implement prudent monetary policies. I mean, this was yesterday. Also, the Winnie the Pooh here does not want, and this also ties in with Hong Kong. So, he said this about Hong Kong, and I don't want to repeat it. But you guys understand that he's not going to give up on Hong Kong. Now, why does he want Hong Kong? Well, Hong Kong is one of the largest financial hubs in the world and was one of the freest. Now, Hong Kong was also a huge door and exit for capital flight. So he needs to take control of Hong Kong because money is just flowing out of Chinese money from mainland China is flowing out of Hong Kong. So that's one of the reasons. The other reasons is, well, Hong Kong is like this beacon of hope and light for maybe the rest of mainland China, because Hong Kong are Chinese, but they've been living under freedom because they used to be a British held colony. So that's also why they're fighting back so hard. Because, once you've had freedom, you really don't want to give it up. Unless you're in the U.S. and you're lazy and been indoctrinated. I digress. Anyways, so that is another huge issue right now that's going on the geopolitical stage for China. And Chinese stocks, worst day from weak GDP data. And this came out yesterday. So their economy is starting to really falter and crack. And Trump knows this, and he actually pulled it off. This was another reason why he was going so hard against China and risking the U.S. stock market in doing so. Because, the game is whose economy is going to fall apart first. Because whoever's economy falls apart first gets dethroned. Now, Winnie the Pooh, believe it or not, is not fully in charge in China. There's like dynasties, families, like I guess you could say they're like royalty, right? They're like mafias, right? And the rumors are just rumors. I have no idea, but he's under threat of a coup, especially as worse the economy gets and tensions get with the U.S. And apparently Winnie the Pooh did not actually think Trump was going to win. And then he didn't really take Trump too seriously in the beginning. He just thought it was rhetoric when he was on the campaign trail talking about taking on China because they're gutting the United States of its industrial manufacturing base. And apparently its entire capital, because trillions have left the U.S. and gone into China to build China up. Trillions. So money has left the U.S., went to China to build China, because the investors made tons of money as China in the past decade has been growing. And that money was not used to create economic growth in the U.S. Now, so it's not just industrial jobs, it's actual capital from the U.S., and it's a security threat. Because now we have international corps that started in the U.S., right, because of the freedom in the U.S., now beholding to China because of the massive profits and the fact that they can't get their own capital back out of the country. No one's talking about... No, there is one guy talking about this. There's 2 YouTube channels I know that actually know all this, and they're actually talking about it. I've learned a lot from them as well. Main Street for Wall Street, that guy. That guy, he actually knows what he's talking about, not like the other YouTubers who just idiots. All right, here's the Chinese yuan versus the U.S. dollar. So as of late, it's been falling dramatically. Now, that's a good thing for Chinese exports, but with the tariffs, it doesn't matter now, does it? If they're not selling anything, it doesn't matter how cheap their currency is. If anything, China right now is probably printing money like it's like it's raining. And the Chinese citizens, the populace, is really starting to feel it. And if there's any civil unrest in China, that's another reason why they created all of the, the digital monitoring, which I'll cover in a second. But as of right now, it's been very weak against the dollar. But I do see possibly in the short term the Chinese yuan strengthening a little bit, which will also be very bad for the Chinese economy. And it might actually weaken with the dollar for the short term for the next few weeks and months. Either way, though, if the Chinese yuan breaks down any further from 0.14, there's going to be massive problems for China. Because if they have runaway inflation with all their bubbles popping, which is their corporate bubble, A lot of the corporations are empty, the offices. Their banking system is, I I've heard it's complete fraud. Also, the real estate bubble that's continuing to pop. So here's an article, Zero Hedge. Office vacancies in China hit decade high amid economic turmoil. New data from Commercial Property Group, CBRE, warns that the country's office vacancies rate has just surged to the highest since the financial crisis of 2007-2008, first reported by Bloomberg. So, lights out for China. And this global slowdown, it really started with China. Office vacancies in China dwarf other global businesses centers. So Shanghai is almost at 20%. Shenzhen at 20%. Beijing almost at 11%. And then comes Frankfurt, Germany, Singapore, and the rest. Tokyo's only 0.7. Hong Kong is only 3.8. London's only at 4% vacancies. China buying boatloads of soybeans from Brazil after U.S. trade talks. So I believe Trump does want some trade with China, and it's mainly because, well, he needs to keep the stock market positive, the sentiment, right? And he needs the stock market to keep going higher. For some reason, Wall Street and the stock market thinks that we need China. Well, I guess we do, because international corporations that were initially U.S., right? They depend a lot on China. Anyways, but Trump's voting base, a lot of it is, in the middle of the United States. It's, a lot of farmers. And he needs China to buy from our farmers, right? But it looks like China's not doing that. And, an election season's coming up. So I don't know how Trump's going to pull this off. I mean, we're not even in 2020 yet. And we have a whole year before the next election, right? I don't know how Trump is going to keep the stock market up, keep his voting base happy, and fight China and Europe. Because they're destroying the U.S. long term with the trade imbalance. But because it's so intertwined and we have such a globalization-like world economy, you can't fix this without breaking something, essentially. But if he doesn't do it, I don't think anyone else will. And when the financial reset finally arrives in the U.S., and there's no manufacturing jobs, what are people going to do? They're going to eat each other. I'm dead serious. You cannot have a service sector economy. A 90% service sector. Nobody makes shit. What's going to happen to all the people in the U.S.? Like, I understand that most people in the U.S. cannot fathom Venezuela, because they've had it so good for so long that it's not even in their psyche that things could get so bad. But an average person does not understand that the entire economy is built on a house of cards and debt. And when it comes crashing down, it's like 80%. It could be 70% unemployment, something like that. I don't know. No, the only employer will be the government, and I don't know. But then you're going to have hyperinflation anyways. And we're going to get hyperinflation anyways because it's the easiest route for the government, right? So they have to wipe out the debt. You just inflate it away with a massive inflation. And it's the easiest route, and it buys you the most time. Although it's so destructive to an average person that, like I said, I'm all for exotic meats, but I don't want to go to the zoo, okay? So here's the One Belt, One Road initiative. I showed this a few times in a few videos prior. Is global. They want to be global, okay? They want to be the next world superpower, and not just be the superpower, but dominate. And they took the rule book out of the art of war. The art of war. I forgot the author's name. But everyone's read the book, right? So basically, the theory is you outsmart your opponent with time. You do it gradually. And then you figure out their weaknesses, and then you position yourself perfectly, and then make the enemy think you're weak, and then when the time is right, you strike and you take over. Which could be happening right now, because they still hold a lot of U.S. treasuries, and they could pretty much just collapse. Not just the U.S., but the global economy, and maybe they position themselves with enough gold to come out superior with a superior currency, and they still have all the manufacturing. Did you guys know that they build Land Rovers now? They're building, they don't build Mercedes or BMW, but they literally own Land Rover. Range Rover. That used to be British, right? Okay, so they've bought up ports. Not just in Indonesia, Australia, and they're looking for the Middle East now, and in Europe. But they've bought up all the ports in Africa. They've even built highways into Africa. They've built train routes, oil pipelines, and highways through the entire Eastern Hemisphere into the West, into Europe. And it goes into Iran, through Tehran. It's gonna go through Syria, and all of it. And they're also working with Russia. In Europe, as of late, has become more open to China. While right now, the news just broke that there's going to be more trade wars with the U.S. from Europe. Now, Europe, in the short term, they might gain from China trade, but the long term, China's going to gut Europe like it gutted the United States. So, India, I don't know. I don't think they're going to... I think India is more allied with the U.S. because they're not that dumb. They know. But, as of late, the news just broke as well that China is buying oil fields in the Middle East, right? And all of the things going on in the sandbox, those are proxy wars. Proxy is they're to gain influence and power in certain regions. Yeah, in Iraq, they bought an oil refinery. Oh, also, they want to go into Venezuela. They want to go into South America as well. And they've bought ports in the United States. They were trying to buy a port in California, the largest export shipping port, right? But this current administration, Trump, they did not allow it to happen. Some Australian firm bought it or something. Although everything in the U.S. is for sale at this point. One of the largest skyscrapers in New York City is owned by Chinese. So here we go. China finally agrees with Trump. We have made substantial progress in trade deal. I think right now China is desperate, and so is Winnie the Pooh right now, because there might be a coup attempt. Who knows, right? But I'm going to show you guys another video you guys can watch after this that goes into very fine detail by the second man or the first trade advisor to Trump. He came out on the record, on video, and he's made a couple videos explaining what's really going on with China, which I will suggest for you guys to watch after you watch this. It says $3.6 billion bailout insulates Turkey from U.S. Here we go again. This is economic warfare, right? On a global geopolitical stage. China's $3.6 billion with a B bailout for Turkey. Meanwhile, Trump is threatening Turkey, do not attack Syria. We'll put on more economic sanctions. But China's like, oh, don't worry. We'll take care of you guys. Scratch my back, you scratch ours. Just let us run our trade route through Turkey. Let us get the oil in the Middle East, and we're taking over the world. That's what's going on, guys, if you pay attention. Of course, most people are watching Netflix. Trump's inner circle pushed him to cave to China and cut trade deal. Yeah, I mean, shortly after leaving CNBC, joining the Trump administration, Trump's top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. Listen, guys. Kudlow, he used to just be an anchor on CNBC. He should not listen to him. But I think right now, but Trump probably hired him because he's a yes man. But I think I think Trump hires people so he could use them as scapegoats, and then he fires them. He's very brilliant and smart. If you are smart enough to understand that he's smart, because the way he plays the media, plays everyone, and he will say something, do the opposite, and then he'll do something and say the opposite, and then he'll trap people. I don't want to say the chess word, but he's very strategic on the things he does, and nobody could read Trump. No one really knows what he's going to do next. I've never met a person who's actually confused me even on what he might do next, which makes me think he really does have maybe the U.S.'s best interest at heart. Although he does have to still play ball with some of the elites, because he'd probably be, gone. I don't want to say certain words. I can't say them. You guys know. So, concerns over Chinese involvement in 5G wireless networks. You can read this on Wikipedia. But Germany ignores EU warning on Huawei 5G security risks. Huawei, however you say. Alright, so Huawei. Now, the people who run this company are part of the Chinese elite who run that country, right? And it's a security risk because they could collect data on everyone whenever they hook up their new 5G network. And, Europe, the European Union, which is a globalist entity, doesn't care because they're probably in bed with China too. But this is another reason why I think Trump has the U.S. best interest at heart. And, when you have dirt on everyone in a country, you own them. That's why privacy is very important. And anyone who's a politician has skeletons in their closet. That's why they're owned puppets. And whoever controls the data owns the puppets and are the puppet masters. Let that sink in. Do I have to say that again? People who are usually politicians, people who want power and to control others and set laws and this and that, are usually something's wrong with them, because normal people don't want to do that, right? Normal people don't want power and power over others, but politicians do, and they're all liars as well. And usually they're not the best people, and they always have skeletons in their closet. And when a foreign nation can get your information, they could hold that against you as entrapment, right? And then you become a puppet of them. And that's how you take over nations, quietly. Huawei 5G technology, is it coming to America despite Trump's blacklist? I really hope not. The offer was first taunted in mid-September and confirmed 2 weeks later. Huawei would be willing to license the company's entire 5G platform to any U.S. business willing to pay the Shenzhen giant hefty fee and invest time and resources. U.S. market. A month later, Reuters has reported Huawei exec Vincent Peng confirmed there are some companies talking to us. As reported, when the original licensing offer was made, despite others' analysis, Washington It was much... Hold on, let me just read the important part. For its part, Washington is not taking Huawei's offer seriously. Last month, the State Department official told Reuters that it's just not realistic that carriers would take on this equipment and then manage all of the software and hardware themselves. If there are software bugs that are... Listen, guys, this is what it's going to come down to. Once Trump's gone, China's going to own you. I don't know how else to tell you this. Because there's just greedy people who are willing to sell out everything for themselves. And they think they're going to be a part of this, club that's going to ride around like royalty. I hope it doesn't come down to that. It's just... I'll post that in the newsroom. Links below the video. China. Alright. So, I don't want to talk too much about this, but it is on CNBC News. So now that it's come out mainstream, maybe I could talk about it. I don't know. This video is probably, no one's going to find it. That's why I'm going to, I don't want to talk about that either. All right. So they have camps there for Muzzies and Christians and any descendants, any dissident, right? There was a Chinese economist who ran the numbers, crunched the numbers, and figured out that the Chinese GDP was also like half of what they say it was. And soon after, they put him in a camp, and no one's ever heard of him since. And he made a YouTube video. It had like, over 1 million views. Now, this is what happens to people who go into these re-education camps in China. While you're alive, they will take out your organs and sell it to the highest bidder. And Israel is like the only country, or was the first to figure this out. And they didn't allow their citizens to get organ transplants from China. Because, I mean, this is beyond evil. I didn't think, in today's modern age that people would do this. I thought maybe in some third world war-torn areas they would do stuff like that. But no, this is technically the largest upcoming empire in the world doing it en masse with God knows how many people. I mean, that's freaking disgusting. You're going to hell for that. You shouldn't do that it's disturbing. It really is. I mean, how can... So this is why liberty, freedom in the U.S. Constitution is so important. Not just for the U.S., but the entire world. Because once it's gone, and you speak up like I am right now in video, this will happen to you. They'll put you in a re-education camp. Stick a pink hat on you. And sell your parts while you're alive. Unbelievable. That's why there will never be a trade deal. Get it? While Trump's in office, there'll never be a trade deal. Should never do trade. Should never have any deals with people like that. Also, if China succeeds, what do you think is going to happen globally? And this is why internationals, right, corps, are companies, right? The elite, right? They don't mind China taking over. Because that's how they're going to control the masses, if you look at this, if you read this, right? Do you want to live like this? With a projector on your face? You won't, because they probably won't let you do that, but that's hilarious and very depressing. This is the world we live in. I hate technology. I really do, guys. Meanwhile, in the West, we have entitled little brats because they don't want to get a job and are completely indoctrinated by communists and Chinese-ran universities, right? They get money from them too as well. The educational system. And then you get this. Look at this. It's like they're possessed little demons. Look at this. Climate activists. How do you... What is it? Like, that's mental illness. Alright. I'm done. I'm getting upset while I make the video. U.S. imposes a record $7.5 billion in tariffs on European goods. Europe vows retaliation. Now, this is very bad for the stock market. Apparently, Europe is doing the same as China to the U.S., but not on such a large scale. But this globalization, it's coming to an end. And that's why they freaked out about Trump, and the media did as well. The war with China is not just trade. That's why there will never really be a real trade deal. All right, guys? They're the upcoming superpower, and you better hope they don't win. Because it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have freedom, and you're in a camp, and your parts are being sold off, it doesn't matter. That's why you have to fight while you still can. While you still have the freedom to speak out and speak up and spread the word. That's why you should, share my videos. And do it while you can. You're going to die anyways. Life's short. At least do the right thing while you're alive. And, you don't want to live in that world. You'll rather... It's better to be dead than living in that world. I'm sorry. Anyways, Real Vision, right? So, Kyle Bass. You should watch that video. Here, I'll show you. These are good videos to watch in China. China's global strategy. The man China fears most. This billionaire escaped China, and he tells you, what China's really about. And that's what every Chinese billionaire is trying to do. They're trying to escape. But this is what you really need to watch. This was posted 4 days ago. The title is the U.S.-China Trade War a Cold War? With Kyle Bass and Robert Spalding. You should watch these videos. They're very good. They're worth your time. You're going to learn a lot, and you're going to get a real in-depth analysis of what's really going on. And it's pretty scary. But it's good stuff. It's better than reality. I mean, reality is better than stupid TV shows that you watch. Reality is way more sick and twisted. Also, China's not the only one that's in trouble, right? The global economy, and I made a video on this, is starting to falter. Obviously, in the Middle East, Christians are being eradicated. West, we have just pure decadence. Pure decadence. Then, Santiago on fire. Chile's military quells mass riots with tanks and troops patrolling streets. So now Chile, massive riots in Chile and civil unrest. Where else? Military police deploys 500,000 Catalan independence protesters shut down Barcelona. This is Chile. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Kinda looks like the Yellow Vest movement. Remember that? It's still going on. Just said no one reports on it. They've deleted pictures already, scrubbing the web. First France, now Spain. It's also happening in Spain. And of course, Hong Kong and the cartel have beaten the Mexican government in a war. In a street war. Look at that. 50 cals. Looks like a complete war zone. Looks like Iraq. What else is going on? Oh yeah, the cartel literally went up to a line of National Guard soldiers, shook their hands in showing them that they're really in charge, because they're not going to do anything because they're afraid. That's how powerful they are, these cartels. And then I just want to show you guys this nice GIF. This is the left versus the right. Now, the left and the right are the wings of the same bird. It's all fascism. But the left is much worse than the right. Because the left, I promise you, if they win, Western civilization's done. And China's going to come in. And historically, that's what happens with empires when they fall, just like Rome. Rome started out strong, right? Free, you had farmers, this and that. Then the welfare and the endless warfare. Then they started letting foreigners into their country. And then from within, the empire collapsed. From within. And then the Hungarians, right? Yeah, the Huns, they came in and they sacked Rome. And then after that, the Muzzies, everyone else came in and sacked. And, historically this is fractal. It's happened to every empire over and over again. But if you're not going to have borders, you're going to get the cartel coming in. China's going to come in and buy up all the assets. Just gut this nation, chop it up, and then turn it into a labor farm. Oh, it'll happen. You don't believe me? Unfortunately, I think you're going to experience it because once set in motion, these things don't just stop. They have to play out the way that they do. The best thing that happens is, maybe it breaks up and there's pockets of freedom. It's the best you could hope for. Anyways, another video you guys should watch is China's Generation Zen by this guy. You should also watch that. It's a short one, 13 minutes. And, I'll post these in the free newsroom, the links to these videos. Again, if you only watch my videos but you're not in the free chat groups, I post these videos all the time for the people who, go into my free chat groups because they're not lazy. At least check it out, right? And they watch them. But for you guys who don't, most of you don't, I'm telling you guys now to check out these videos. They're good. And I watch a lot of videos, and I sort of vet them. If I think it's, in my opinion, worthy of watching, then I post. Alright guys, listen, these videos, they take a very long time to prep, to make these, to put everything in order. And you guys need to go to my website, purchase things, to make it worth my time to make these videos, because I really don't get much money, like $100 a month, not even. So you have to go to my website and click on that video. That's what you could expect to get. You get a free data on a free mining stock, and the product should pay for itself, right? I'm not making any promises, but it should pay for itself, and then more, a lot more, in the next coming months and years. Because obviously, I think we're going to go into a very turbulent time, sort of like the modern dark ages, because the entire world is a giant Ponzi scheme at this point because of fiat currencies and enormous governments that live beyond their means and empires. And there's going to be imperial wars. We're going to see it again, guys. History always repeats and rhymes. So prepare for it, right? At least profit or make something off of it so you could survive it, right? The coming turmoil. And that's what we're doing. That's what I'm trying to do. So go to my website, $10 a month for the private group, but you have to purchase the report, which is, it's well worth it. Smash some likes, leave anything in the comment section. I do browse through them, and please share my videos. I really appreciate it. It's the only way my channel grows, and I will continue to make these videos. Until next time.